Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Open Look podcast. My name is John Halim, a.k.a. John the Podcaster. As always, I am joined by Sir David of House Hannah. Dave, I gave you a nickname this time.
I like the name, but you forgot about Halim the Dream.
I'm going to let you address me with that because we're going to talk about some things that make me look like a genius and make you look like not so much of a genius.
You'll try, but we'll see what you can do. Go ahead.
All right. Well, week 1 of the NBA season is in the books. Dave, what did you think? Did it live up to the hype?
I'm very surprised. There's a lot of surprising basketball teams. There's some teams that certainly I didn't expect their start, and there's some teams that haven't done very well. So it's been a very interesting first week. I don't know what to tell you.
All right. So with that in mind, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Who surprised you the most? We'll just start with that. We'll get into who disappointed you the most in a second. But who surprised you the most?
Well, I'd have to say the Phoenix Suns, believe it or not. The Phoenix Suns, 2-2, playing pretty good basketball. Their games are very close. I mean, when I look at their scores of what they did this past year, they won the first game. They beat the Kings soundly, 124-95. They lost to the Nuggets by 1. They beat the Clippers, which we thought nobody could beat the Clippers, but they beat them at home. And then they lost to the Jazz by 1. They've looked really good, and I got to give it up to the coaching. I think, he's done a fantastic – Monty Williams has done a fantastic job with that basketball team. If there's anything they've done correctly, they've hired the right coach to make that happen. So I'm very impressed with the Phoenix Suns right now.
Yeah, and if we look back in time, the Lakers wanted to hire Monty Williams, and he ended up going to Phoenix instead. So I do kind of agree with you. He's done a good job, and he was a hot prospect as far as the coaching availability this summer. And I think they got the right job. You're absolutely right. They did surprise me. They are playing better than we expected. I think they will revert to the mean eventually. They just don't have the talent to keep up with the rest of the league. I don't see them even sniffing the playoffs, especially when you got some much better teams ahead of them. I'll tell you who surprised me. Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns is playing like a man on fire. You have Andrew Wiggins, who is starting to show up and play like an adult, showing some maturity. So it's been a really good start to the season for Minnesota. What do you think of what they're doing?
It all starts and ends with Karl Anthony Towns. You said it right there. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is that guy. If he's working on all cylinders, they're very tough to beat. It's tough to find a really good big man. He's dominating this area. You're talking about Andrew Wiggins. He is starting to play fantastic basketball. Robert Covington, who's healthy now, starting to show what type of value he's got. So they've got a really nice basketball team. Again, I think they're like the Phoenix Suns. They probably won't sustain this run too much longer. They haven't really played anybody of significance yet. But the Minnesota Timberwolves, they've started off, I think they're 3-0. So they played very well.
Yeah, you are correct. They are undefeated to start the season as we record this, today being October 30th. So the evening of October 30th, no games have kicked off yet, so we don't know who's won or lost. We are not that good. But, Dave, who's disappointed you to start the season so far?
I'd have to say the Golden State Warriors. I didn't expect for them to get blown out by the Clippers and then literally get blown out by the Oklahoma City Thunder, who I don't have in the playoffs whatsoever. They won the last game. It's so insignificant because I can't name anybody on their squad outside of their 4 main guys, Draymond, Curry, Clay, and D'Angelo Russell. So they don't have the depth. They've spent a lot of money on their guys, and now it's starting to bite them. They don't have they don't have that team anymore. They don't have Andre Iguodala to fix their problems. They don't have Sean Livingston to get things rolling. They're missing so many pieces. And now that Klay Thompson's going to be out for the rest of the year, according to Steve Kerr and according to the Golden State Warriors, I'd probably have to say I can't put him in the 7th spot like I had him when we did our last segment when we talked about who would make the playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree with you in the sense that, but they didn't disappoint me because I knew they weren't going to be as good as they have been in the past. So the issue with the Warriors, they don't have any size. So they get out-rebounded. They get killed on the boards. They can't defend anyone. They just don't have any good defenders. You mentioned Andre Iguodala's gone. I agree with you. our assumption that they would make the playoffs was that Klay was going to come back sometime around the All-Star break, and that team would hit its stride later on. They're not going to do that because Klay is not coming back. So I think this team is dead in the water. I think at some point they're going to shut down Steph Curry and tank it if they are smart. I don't know if they have their first round pick or not. Maybe you can tell me. I can look at that here in a second if you're not sure. But do you think tank mode is an option for them?
I don't, because I think part of the Kevin Durant sign and trade was a first round pick, and I believe the trade they did with Andre Iguodala was also a first round pick. So they actually are in a really bad bind at the moment as far as getting that first round pick and tanking it and maybe getting some lotto pick. I don't see it happening because I think they gave up those picks. I mean, they need to shed some salary and need to move some pieces, and they attached some first round picks to that. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that Durant forced their hand to give up a first round pick to do a D'Angelo Russell trade, and also with Iguodala just to get rid of him.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's the case, and I'm just checking on that here as we discuss this, and folks, we should have been more prepared. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. But Dave, if you look at it at that case, you know that they're probably going to be sellers at the trade deadline. Who do you see them getting rid of if they have to get rid of someone at that point?
Their hottest commodity, the guy that hasn't been part of the system, D'Angelo Russell. I mean, you showcased D'Angelo Russell a lot. There was some reports that said that they wanted to go through D'Angelo Russell, which is very surprising. But I showcased D'Angelo Russell and try to get a whole bunch of pieces for D'Angelo Russell. He's just not he's not going to fit that team, number one. Number two is he has a high value. You can probably get some nice pieces to get some more depth on your basketball team. But that's the only guy, because I think they've invested in Draymond Green. They've already invested in Curry. You're not going to trade your franchise player, Curry, away. You're not going to trade Klay Thompson because he's your other franchise player. So the only guy that they have of value is D'Angelo Russell, because the rest of the guys, like I said, we can't even name their squad.
All right, so here's the kicker. Their draft pick that was included in that trade is top 20 protected. So if they tank it, they can still keep their draft pick and they can go with a high draft pick. So with that in mind, my original thought process here is if you say by Christmas they're totally out of the playoff picture, I think that Steve Kerr is going to turn into the tank commander, and they're just going to shut Steph Curry down at some point. They might even shut down D'Angelo Russell. I don't know if they decide to trade him or not. They're saying that they want to keep him. So there are a lot of variables here. But I think if you're looking at the playoff picture come December or so, or maybe even sooner than that, if you're looking maybe 20 games in and they're not in the playoff picture, I can see Golden State shutting Steph down. It's a wasted season anyways, and riding the tank. So with that in mind, does that change your thought process at all?
Wow, I think that kind of will tarnish a little bit of the legacy that is Steph Curry if they shut him down. I don't know if they'll shut him down that early. I think they'll be competitive, but if they lose, they lose. I mean, they're losing already with Steph Curry, so might as well continue the trend of losing. I just don't know if Steph Curry will want to sit out healthy and not play for another 4 months. So it's really up in the air. Bob Myers has his work cut out for him. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on to another team that's had a disappointing start to the season. That's a team that I was very high on, that I had coming in second place in the playoff picture in the last episode, and that was the Portland Trailblazers. They've started off the season, and they seem to have regressed from where they were last season. They brought in Hassan Whiteside, who I thought was going to improve their defense, improve them on the boards, and they've actually gone backwards on the defensive end. They've been horrible on the defensive end. Now, one thing that Portland is known for is being able to kill you from the outside, and they haven't been able to do that. They're only shooting 33% from the three-point line right now as we record this. That's not going to cut it in the NBA, and it's definitely not going to cut it for a team that's dependent on the three-point line as they are. I know you had predicted, and you're looking like a genius 4 games into the season, but it's too early to tell, I think, at that point. But their start has been less than I expected, and I'll go ahead and give you the floor to go ahead and gloat.
I'll just smile like this because you're so wrong. Because I expected the Portland Trailblazers to be exactly what they are. Look, They don't have enough shooters. Hassan Whiteside has regressed every single year since he signed that big contract with Miami. They're down to Yusuf Nurkic. They don't have anybody who could shoot outside of who? McCollum and Lillard? I mean, who do you have? You lost Seth Curry. You lost Al-Farouq Amino. You lost Evan Turner. A lot of guys that were nice plug-ins to your basketball team. You got bigger. You got Hassan Whiteside. You got Pau Gasol. Well, I'll never understand the Pau Gasol signing. But you didn't get better. You didn't get more athletic. Now, they do have some nice young guys, but they're not shooters. So that's going to continue to haunt them. And I just don't see Portland big do it. I got them at 6. I'm going to keep them there. 6 is where they're going to be.
Honestly, the way that they've started the season, I would not be surprised if they fell out of the picture altogether. It's so competitive at the top of the Western Conference. 1 through 8, I mean, you have legitimately, we got to say 10 to 12 teams competing for 8 spots. There are 12 teams in the Western Conference you could legitimately say are playoff teams as it looks right now. And there are only 8 spots.
I'm gonna make you feel a little bit better, but Dallas Mavericks have been playing pretty good basketball. So I have to give you your props. I will give you your props because the Dallas Mavericks have looked really good. So I will give you that. I mean, I could be right about Portland, but I was wrong about Dallas. Dallas looks really good after the first week. So I'll give you that.
So I guess that just makes us even then. So we're going to play a quick game here. We're going to call it Contender or Pretender. We're going to name 5 teams, and we're going to talk about why we think they are either contenders or pretenders. But before we do that, if you are enjoying the show so far, if you've enjoyed our previous episodes, do make sure to go down there and do what, Dave?
Make sure you press that button and make sure you do that like and make some comments.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe. The Open Look on YouTube, baby. And to be honest with you guys, I didn't post the previous series on the podcast. And the reason for that is because you guys just watch here a whole lot more than you listen over there. So to be honest with you, although the Open Look started as a podcast, I think we're moving more into becoming just strictly a YouTube channel. Let us know in the comments if you want us to continue to post our episodes on the podcast, if that's what you prefer. Or if you're okay watching us, or if you just want to turn us on YouTube and just not look, I mean, that's an option too. You guys let us know in the comments below. This is not going on the podcast. You got to be on our YouTube channel here to see this episode. So do make sure to let us know how you like to consume our content, and we'll definitely do what we can to accommodate you. But Dave, let's go ahead and move into our contenders and pretenders. We're going to start off with the obvious question here. We're going to go with the Los Angeles Clippers. Are they a contender or a pretender?
They're 100% a contender. They are a dynamic basketball team. We're just seeing the surface of what this team can do. I mean, look, Kawhi Leonard is beyond special. He gets better every year. They have the defenders that they need. Montrezl Harrell is a fantastic force in their front line, which is thin, but they have enough to get that done. Patrick Beverley, lockdown defender. Paul George, lockdown defender. Kawhi Leonard, lockdown defender. They've got Maurice Harkless. He's no joke either. Landry Shamet. This team is stacked. I mean, their depth is good. Their coaching is phenomenal. Doc Rivers is one of the best. They have assistant coach Tyronn Lue. This is a very good, very well-run basketball team. For the first time in my life, I can honestly say the Clippers look good. And they were very good in the first game. Very good through. Had a little hiccup with the Phoenix Suns, but it's going to be tough to beat the Clippers every single night. They're very good defensively, very good offensively, 100% contender.
I have no disagreement with you. And all those guys that you mentioned there, you didn't even mention Lou Williams, who has been almost impossible to stop off the bench. I saw that game against the Lakers. The Lakers started off hot. Over time, they just wore the Lakers down. Kawhi Leonard is just unstoppable at certain points on the offensive and defensive end of the floor. This team just doesn't have any real weaknesses as it stands right now. And, oh, by the way, Paul George hasn't even played a single game yet. So, I mean, if you look at the way this team is built and you got that guy. So, for me, definitely a contender as well. I have no argument there. And I stand by my prediction of seeing them be the top seed in the Western Conference and winning the title this year. They just – pending injuries, if they don't have any serious injuries going down the line, I don't see this team having any hiccups or any issues on the court. They should easily run the table and beat anyone put in front of them. I have no doubt about that.
I agree. Look, I agree with you. I think the only thing that will probably kill them is we'll see if Paul George can fit into what Kawhi and company is doing. So, I mean, if he changes the dynamics of that, remember, the rotation is going to change. So whatever you're seeing now of Landry Shamet and the other players that are contributing, Paul George he'll eat up about 35, 40 minutes of that time. So it'll be an interesting, it's a nice problem to have if I'm Doc Rivers, but certainly we want to see what happens because his usage rate, Paul George's usage rate is pretty high, and he likes to have the ball in his hand. He's not very good off the ball. He's better when he has the ball in his hand. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, they're probably one of the toughest teams to beat.
Well, if you're looking at that, you're going to definitely see Harkless going to take a step back. And it kind of stinks in that regard because you have a young player here who does have a bright future in this league, I think. And if he's going to take that back seat, I think it's going to hurt his maturation process. I think JaMychal Green is also going to lose some minutes. You got that same outside shooting. I'm just looking at their roster here. I'm trying to see where Paul George is gonna fit in here.
Well,
they can also
he'll eat up a lot of Landry Shamet's time. I mean, that's really what it is. And he is a solid young player.
Well, and the thing is with Landry Shamet, he typically spells either Beverly or Lou Williams. And when Lou Williams and Landry Shamet are on the floor together, that hurts their perimeter defense, but they are very tough to stop on the offensive end. I can see them going with a smaller lineup, playing Kawhi at the 4, maybe, or even Paul George at the 4. Because you don't really have that much depth up front if you're the Clippers. So I can definitely see them using those guys a little bit further up front and somehow making that rotation work. I don't doubt that Doc Rivers is going to be able to pull it off. Are there going to be some chemistry issues? That remains to be seen. So I mean, if Paul George comes back in and he's not playing as much as he likes, then that could cause some issues. I don't see it, though. I don't really see how you have all those veterans and quality guys having chemistry issues pop up. So I don't see it being an issue. That this team is dangerous, bar none. So, but let's talk about the other LA team. Are we going to go contender or pretender?
The Los Angeles Lakers, 100% contender. And we haven't even seen what they can do when Kyle Kuzma gets back or when Rajon Rondo gets back. Dwight Howard, he's played better than I thought. Last night's game against the Memphis Grizzlies, which would be October the 20, what is it today? The
29th. 29th is when the game happened.
Yesterday. 40-20. I mean, we haven't seen that in decades. So, no, they're very, very good. Defensively, they're very solid. Offensively, they're figuring it out. LeBron James is asserting himself. I think the first game needed to feel out, kind of figure out how things go. You're never really going to see Anthony Davis and LeBron James score 2 points in the fourth quarter of an NBA game. But this team it's primed. I mean, they are ready to roll. They've got enough defenders. They have enough depth. Avery Bradley's giving them good minutes. They have Troy Daniels has been fantastic from 3-point range. Dwight Howard has done more than what is expected. We expected Dwight Howard. He's been hustling. He's been doing a lot of things. Their plus minus is way above average right now with Dwight on the floor. Probably the only guy I don't like, and I'm sure a lot of Laker fans will probably agree with me, is KCP. He's just hot garbage at this point. But the plus minus on KCP is still very high. He's at about a plus 19. So it's a very good basketball team. There's going to be, of course, the sitting down of LeBron James, sitting down AD on games that aren't significant. But the Lakers should be right up there contending.
I'm torn on whether to say contender or pretender here. And I'll tell you why. Through those 3 games, the offense can be very stagnant and very predictable. You and I were texting back and forth during the Clippers game, and I told you that I had the offense figured out halfway through the second quarter, and there was no doubt that Doc Rivers had it figured out too. If me sitting at home had it figured out, he definitely had it figured out too. I think there's a little too much ISO ball. The ball gets stuck sometimes. They are last in pace, which you look at in the past when LeBron was making the finals, and his teams, they were always towards the bottom of the league in pace. So it doesn't worry me that much, but it can be a bit of a red flag as to how this team is planning their attack on the offensive end. I have to say at this point they're a contender because they are beating up on the teams that you expect them to beat up on. They beat Utah fairly easily, which they're not chopped liver, but they've kind of not been living up to standards either. It's hard though. I'm gonna say that they're a contender, but there's definitely potential for them to fall into that pretender category. And if an injury happens to Anthony Davis, we saw him icing his shoulder towards the end of the game against Memphis. You got LeBron, who's getting up there in years. We saw him last year sitting out a big chunk of the season. If those two guys get hit with the injury bug, this team has nobody to lead them into the promised land. So that's where I stand on the Lakers. Again, I'm going to make it very clear here that I'm going to be as pessimistic until I see that trophy being paraded down La Cienega in front of. It's on La Cienega, right? The Staples Center. I think that's the street it's on.
It's on Figueroa, but
Figueroa. There you go.
You lived in Maryland too long, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, I until I see the trophy being paraded down the street in front of Staples Center, I'm still going to be pessimistic. I'm going to say contender, but very likely to fall into pretender. Moving past the Lakers, we're going to go ahead and talk about a team from the East, the team that we both thought was the best team in the Eastern Conference. When it's all said and done, I had them at 1, you had them at 2, but making the finals. We're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. What have you seen from them, and what makes you think they're a contender or a pretender?
Well, Milwaukee has the reigning MVP. It doesn't seem that anybody's kind of figured him out yet. I would probably, stay off of him about 10 feet and let him shoot that jump shot. But he's been able to knock it down, and they got better. They added depth. People forget they brought in Kyle Korver for shooting. They brought in Wes Matthews when they lost Malcolm Brogdon. They brought in Robin Lopez, who's typically a starter. So they've done they've actually picked some nice pieces. They brought back Chris Middleton. They paid him a good amount of money. They secured Eric Bledsoe. Bledsoe kind of makes them a little stagnant. But if I had to say if they're a contender, they're 100% a contender because the East is just so weak in so many ways. I'm already surprised by some starts. Let's talk about the Indiana Pacers, who have been atrocious so far, and they really need Victor Oladipo back. But in my opinion, I think Milwaukee should be able to walk right through this. I think they'll have some tough matchups against some teams, but I think that they're primed to make it a very good run. Wes Matthews has been fantastic. He is knocking down he's basically primarily a spot-up shooter, so he's doing what he's doing. He defends okay, and they have enough depth to get it done. And Brook Lopez has been fantastic, kind of revived his career. Budenholzer is a fantastic coach. He's from the Popovich tree, so I like them. I think they're a contender.
Simply by virtue of the fact that they're in the Eastern Conference, I have them as a contender. In the West, you have teams that are going to beat up on each other, and by the time you get to the finals, they're beat, and they've picked up. You saw the Warriors; they go through this injury issue, and it's just difficult making it through the Western Conference. And then you got to run into a team with a guy like you mentioned, Giannis Antetokounmpo. What an incredible player, man! And can you imagine once he starts hitting a consistent jump shot, it's game over. You can't defend the guy. He's just so long. You saw him hit a buzzer beater. He's clutch. We saw him hit a buzzer beater to send a game into overtime this week. He's just such a good player, and I'm not worried about him carrying that team because he is still fairly young. That's something that a lot of people forget. You've been hearing of him for a while. He's already an MVP. He's very young still. He's still got a lot of years ahead of him in this league, and he's gonna do very well. So I agree with you. Milwaukee is a contender. The team that they are going to be contending with, though, we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Contender or pretender for you? They've looked good early.
Pretender. And I'll tell you why. It's a team that doesn't have shooting. I mean, look, Josh Richardson, nice pickup. Very nice for a replacement for Jimmy Butler. I get that. But they went out and got bigger. So they brought in and they paid a boatload to Horford. I still don't understand how Horford fits in this whole thing. Their interior defense is fantastic. But the question will be can Joel Embiid stay healthy? That's number one. can Ben Simmons knock down a jump shot? That's number 2. And number 3 is, where are they going to find outside shooting? The guy that was knocking down the shots for them, JJ Redick, signed elsewhere. And they really don't have that perimeter shooting that they need to win in the NBA. In the NBA, we can all agree, the NBA is about that long-range jump shot. Big men are starting to put that in their arsenal. It's no longer a post-up type of game anymore. It's more three-point shooting and outside shooting. Where are they going to get that? Because they have nobody that can really shoot the ball at a very high percentage. They didn't pick up Kyle Korver. They probably need to call Ray Allen to see if he'll come out of retirement so they can get some sort of outside shooting. So that's going to be their demise. I think they'll be fine interiorly, but offensively on the outside in the three-point area, that's going to be a big problem. And I don't trust Brett Brown enough to think that he will get them over the hump.
Did you just make a word right there?
What's the word?
Interiorly?
I can do whatever I want, man. It's my show. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, whatever you say. I'm not too worried about their outside shooting when you have Tobias Harris there. He can spread the floor. Al Horford can shoot the ball from the outside. It's not the end of the world with him. I'm going to call them a contender. They've got too much size for everyone else in the Eastern Conference. I think that they're showing every game that they are going to be difficult to beat on the boards. They're difficult to score against on the inside. And if you're limiting your team or you're limiting your opposition to inefficient shots, then by all means. And I think that they have that going for them. They're very good on the defensive end. I think you're going to see a lot more of Tobias Harris, becoming what he was with the Clippers, being that 20-point guy and being able to hit those shots from the outside. That's the reason why they brought him in, and that's why they paid him money. So I have to disagree with you. I have to go with contender for Philly. I think the only team that could compete with them in the Eastern Conference is Milwaukee. I think at the end of the day, Milwaukee's better as it stands right now. We don't know if this team is going to be as it is towards the end of the season. It's entirely possible that they can sign more shooting towards the end of the season. And when that happens, or if that happens, this team is going to be very difficult to beat. They match up well. If they make it to the finals, they match up well with the Lakers because they have the size to rebound with the Lakers. They actually match up pretty well with the Clippers too, I think. So you look at that, and it's hard for me to pick against these guys. And I know you disagree, but we'll have to agree to disagree there. And we'll go with the last team that we want to talk about here today. The team that doesn't get a lot of love, but they are still a very good basketball team. And that's the Denver Nuggets. Contender or pretender for you?
Well, what did they add? They added Jerry Grant to that basketball team. They do have some young guys that we touched on it last time, Porter Jr., Bol. We get that. They've invested enough money in Gary Harris, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. We get that part too. But they also have a guy on the decline in Paul Millsap. They lost in the second round of the playoffs last year in Game 7 to the Portland Trail Blazers in their own home. They had a fantastic regular season. Do I think that they will be able to get through it? Now, they're young enough to get through it, but they're going to have a building block that's going to have to come to them because they're going to have to deal with the Utah Jazz. They're going to have to deal with the Lakers. They're going to have to deal with the Clippers. They're going to have to deal with San Antonio, which surprisingly, when we do this recording, they're 3-0 as well, and I have them in the playoffs. They have to deal with some very big-time teams. I'm on the edge with this one because I like the Nuggets. I really do. I think they're a fantastic basketball team. But as of right now, I think I'm going to have to sway as a pretender. Even though I'm high on them, unless they show me something, something clicks, something like Jamal Murray all of a sudden becomes a superstar with Nikola Jokic, or somebody becomes a superstar with Nikola Jokic, I just don't know if they have enough. They have nice role players. They just don't have that superstar player outside of Jokic, and I just don't know if they'll get over the hump. So I'm just gonna go as of today as a pretender.
I agree, but I'm actually a little bit more firm on this one. I wholeheartedly think they're a pretender. They're gonna do good during the regular season, and when playoff time comes around, they're just not built well for the playoffs. I don't see how this team could beat the Clippers, the Lakers, even in a 7-game series. I mean, I think Houston could probably give them a run for their money, and I'm not even that high on Houston. So I think 7-game series with say the Dallas Mavericks in the first round, I could see an upset there, definitely. So I'm not very high on them. I do think that they're 1 or 2 pieces away. If come towards the trade deadline, there's a player out there who's disgruntled with his current situation, wants to move, and Denver makes a move for him. I don't know who that player could be. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical situation here. But if that were to happen and you keep all your core guys, that could be a dangerous situation for their opposition. I think they could be a very good team if that happens. As it stands now, though, I don't see them being more than a regular season juggernaut and a playoff dud. That's how I see them.
Here's what you need to pay attention to, John, and I think you touched on it. If you recall, the Memphis Grizzlies back in the days, and I'm going to go earlier in the 2010 mark when they had Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph and Mike Conley, and those guys, they were stuck in a rut and they couldn't get out of the playoffs. They were having good regular seasons, and then they would be stuck in kind of like that second round, first round area. And eventually they had to break that up so that they can restart and do it, because when you're stuck in a rut, you're just stuck in a rut. The same thing happened with Philadelphia 76ers when they had Drew Holiday and Andre Iguodala. They were just kind of stuck. I don't know if the Denver Nuggets are just going to be stuck, or are they going to have to move a Jamal Murray or Gary Harris. I don't see them moving Nikola Jokic, but you may have to move one of those guys to get that guy or get guys to get over the hump. You hit it right on the spot. I think that Denver really, if they don't do well this year, they're going to have to think about doing some sort of big change with the guys they have.
You think if they do poorly for the rest of the season, that it's time to blow it up?
I don't say blow it up, but I say you're going to have to give up one of the guys that I just mentioned to you. I mean, they've invested a lot in Gary Harris. They've invested in Jamal Murray. They have some guys that probably won't get any more value, but those are the guys outside of Jokic that will bring you some sort of value. So you may have to dig in to some team and kind of wave, a Harris around or somebody around, and even Michael Porter Jr. and say he's got a little upside. What do you think about having him and try to go after a disgruntled basketball player on a bad team somewhere to make that next step. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. It's one of those things I think is going to be hard for them to do, but yeah, they may need to see what they want to do. They got a lot of guys on rookie contracts. Eventually you got to pay those guys. They're not going to be able to keep that team together. So it's going to be tough,
Yeah. That is a tough situation for them. They do have a really good coach though, Mike Malone. So if someone's capable of bringing this together, it's probably him. He's got a system that's proven in this league, and he's going to do some big things here. But folks, that is our episode for today. I hope you enjoyed hearing what we had to say about these teams. If you agree or disagree, please get in the comments below and let us know what you think. We would love to have that discussion with you. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification icon. Hit the thumbs up. You know what to do, guys. You're not new with this. Come on. It's easy. Takes you only a few seconds. Helps us to put out more content. If you enjoy what you're seeing here, we'd love to make more for you. So, Dave, any parting shots?
I injured my foot this past week. Not fun.
Yeah, Dave was in the process of putting his foot in his mouth after all the crazy stuff he said last week. He ended up biting his toe.
No, that's not what happened. But, yes, I hurt my foot, and I'm kind of out for about 6 weeks on the IR, injured reserved. What do they say? PUP or whatever they do it in football. Can't do anything. So, yeah, thank God you can only see me from here to here and not from down there because, yes, I'm in a walking boot and it's not fun. But, yeah, we'll get through it.
And also, folks, if you guys didn't know, Dave does the show in his boxers. So,
yeah, something like that. Yeah, right. I'm checking.
All right, folks. Well, we hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. Do make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Open Look Podcast. Also, same username on Facebook. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at the Open Look Pod. For David Hanna, my name is John Halim. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.